Let's see. Never joined one of these before. I like this one. Let's click it.
Find anything. And I didn't realize that they could literally smash through the doors and the windows and shit.
You gotta take your time. You gotta take your time and pick your fights. And then
It is awkward.
once you get a lot of like points in skills and shit, then you can take more risks.
When you say take risks, I wasn't even taking risks. I was literally going from one house to another, and there was about 20 zombies just like dogpiled me, and I didn't have a single thing to hold up,
Yeah,
like a
you can
weapon or anything.
outwalk them, mate. You can literally outwalk them.
Hmm.
Dude, you can
Yeah,
walk
but
faster than them.
yeah, but when you get into a house, you're looking for shit, they break in.
Yeah, and you can walk out the house and go to the fucking next one.
I was playing Soundboy. Okay, I see
Can you
what's going on.
speak to people on it? Or do you have to go in a Discord?
No, you can do it text. You don't need anyone. The reason people play multiplayer is you make friends there. Like you'll run into people and like you'll find who you click with. You know.
No, that's what I mean. Like, can you use your mic in the game, or can you only use
Yeah,
the
if they've
Discord?
got it on, yeah, if they've got it on, you can talk in the
Hmm.
game.
Oh, what vicinity chat?
Yeah, like there's a hotkey. Like I don't remember what it is, but you can change it in settings and have a look. It might be Alt. I can't remember.
So this is basically just a top-down version of DayZ, then.
Yeah, it's like DayZ but on steroids because the zombies are very deadly and high numbers. It's a hard game, but once you learn how to play it,
Hmm.
it's the most satisfying thing, dude. My longest run was 8 in-game months, like over 100k kills. Like there's like it's just one of those games where the learning curve is high, it's hard, but once you've got it down, it's like just the best thing.
Man, my
It's on
hope
console in it as well.
is to eventually get
No, but it has
into
controller support.
like my hope here is eventually to try and get into a room of people that at least have some of them that disagree with me because I'm hoping for a you know like a meaningful conversation. Like I want to have something to challenge. I don't want to just have something I already agree with, but at the same time, I'm a shy guy and I don't know how to engage and how to start any of these discussions. All right, let's start checking some of these other ones and seeing because I was hoping for some more discussions here, but I think we're just watching somebody stream. Face breakers. You see, I'm already an atheist, so I don't know. Christian chat. Okay. Learn about God. That one might be a good one to go into because I have certain issues, of course. Islam defense trends. Like this is the topic I've been kind of thinking about a lot lately. Here, let me undeafen. Yeah,
And take prone to illness because if you get bit, you're dead anyway.
I would really hope to just
Okay, scroll down. Take
to get a
pacifist.
discussion about this specific topic.
You might want to save this build too.
Yeah, they got out.
Scroll down
I think I'm gonna leave too.
and take.
How'd the call go? It wasn't what I wanted. See if I can find something. Still can't. Okay, I want to see this.
Stock anyway.
Well, obviously,
They're all
do you not like stock? What
yeah,
the
no,
fuck do you
they're
have
gonna
against stock?
no, the rich will always disproportionately win, but it'll make the downs like less, even for the rich people,
Oh,
because
so you hate Downs people too.
yeah, I hate downs.
Huh. Oh man. What's he talking about?
Hey, welcome, Mac.
Heyo.
Hello, hello.
Okay. Here's one thing I don't get, and I've tried to talk with Gizmo about this a couple times, and I still don't understand the generation of money. Like, I understand the mechanisms to an extent
Yeah.
of treasury bonds, and the Federal Reserve and debt and whatever. But we're all just talking about trading shit, right? Like it's an evolution of the barter system. Am I wrong? Am I way off base there? Or...
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you could even argue it's like a currency, right? Like, even Larry Fink, who's the CEO.
Liquidation.
Well, even Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, said himself that the next step is tokenized assets, basically meaning, like, just like I could send you Ethereum or Bitcoin, I could just throw you like a quarter of an Apple stock, real quick. You know.
But see, like, the thing I have with that, like tokens and all that, it's like it's so much higher volatility to the points. Like, how's that going to be the next biggest thing besides just trading with it at that point?
Well, all tokenizing the assets do would make it easier to trade.
But that's just
Like, for
assetizing
example, I could-
assets, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally the only thing that changes is your share is now a token that you could like send to your grandma if you wanted to.
But that's just currency, and so
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean is you could argue that it's becoming like a currency because that seems to be the direction things are going.
so. But how do we actually generate wealth? It has to come from resources. There's no other way, in my opinion. Hey, welcome, free speech.
What I do when I
Well,
go and
resources,
invest.
services, or not services, are a huge part of the U.S. economy.
Well, yeah, but our economy, but where do we derive our value of services from?
Mainly from like the
Through
companies, cash
imperfect
allocation.
Yeah, and where do the companies get their value from? Like, come on, go down with me on this route. There has to be resources at the end of it. There has to
Well,
be
they're
resources.
valued based on their projected future outcomes, because that's how stock works.
Okay, whatever.
That's how the companies should be valued.
Yeah, you see, this is a topic that I'm not too familiar with, so I'm trying to just listen in because I don't know anything about this. This is an interesting thing to learn.
$1 trillion of value. Like, where the fuck did that $4 trillion in value come from, and where did it go? Huh?
Yeah, well, it all went into things like Clove and like interest-bearing assets,
Or essential oils.
or things like VIG or consumer goods ETFs.
Right,
like
so it just
IYK.
transfers, it doesn't generate.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is money never actually disappears; it just changes hands.
It's like E equals MC squared, in my opinion.
Here's what we need to do.
Just like how BlackRock
get
went
behind
from Bigs to BTX pretty quick,
Yeah,
just
mute, yeah.
not too long ago.
So if you steal $1 billion from a
Mhm.
$800 billionaire, where did that value come from?
Still $1 million. From
Honestly,
a
at this
billionaire?
point, the stock market's just a bunch of rich people gambling. Like that's
It's always been.
yeah,
Yeah, that I
yeah.
can
It's
see.
just
But if they gamble, how did they get that
by
quote unquote
gambling.
money in order to gamble? They had to get
Someone
it from
else had to
resources.
get squeezed, right? Like 30,000 sheeple like lost half their life savings somewhere out there.
And
Nameless,
don't get me wrong, I'm not
faceless
arguing
people.
against capitalism. Sorry, I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
No, I'm for capitalism. I just think that like if we want to maintain a prosperous capitalism, I don't think we should ever go communist and start like taking over businesses and yada yada. But I don't think it would be necessarily a bad thing to take some steps to get companies to pay like a bit more of a fair share in taxes.
Like one yacht a year.
Well, there's
That's
just way too many loopholes, right? There's way too many like profit shifting, like I could like loan myself interest like money from a subsidiary and then the interest on that's tax free and like there's like so many like weird loopholes that you
Yeah,
can do.
like what I'm doing right now is I'm borrowing margin off my portfolios, and they're gonna get tax deduction from that out of the interest. So yeah, it's like all kinds of stuff you can do with it.
Yep.
Having an HSA is good too. You get tax deductions from that. Mostly you get tax deductions from mainly. Besides, like if you got 401k.
And also I think that like if we really want to solve the problem, um we need programs where incredibly intelligent people from the world's top schools can have an incentive to go to like a mid-level accounting firm or like like we need something where it's like, hey, is it your first job out of Harvard? Well, we'll tell you what, if instead of just running to Google or Microsoft immediately, we'll actually pay you like a very competitive advantage to go work at this like accounting firm that's popping off and doing well, and they just feel like they need that little bit of an extra edge to take them to the next level, right? Because like a lot of it too is like the brain drain when you have all the best and smartest people working for like 7 companies. Like take a guess at which 7 companies are going to do the best, right?
Right.
It's like I think that's another thing is we need to incentivize somehow. I don't know even how we do it. I'd have to like sit and hash it out, but something to like incentivize them to not just immediately flock to the big companies.
Yeah. Tech right now, man, is like in this like AI bubble, and it's always been since AI ever became a thing, like ChatGPT and all that, and it's just contributing to that bubble that we're in. And I'm wondering when it's gonna pop, when everything's gonna pop.
I don't think AI is a bubble is the thing, nor do I think that the dot-com bubble was necessarily a bubble either. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing about the dot-com bubble is uh, what happened. You had a bunch of people that put out a bunch of fiber and stuff. It wasn't worth as much as they thought as quickly, but very shortly after, people realized like that it was actually worth a lot, right? So it's like, just because something has like I'm not even saying we won't have a mini bus, but like I'm not saying that that would mean that it's the end of the AI. Like I think AI is here to stay, really.
Yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, that's just the case. And
I mean, how is it gonna get destroyed?
yeah, it should. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, just in general, just like we're just in this like I don't know what they
Like a
call
TV show.
uh everything bubble, I think is what they call it. Is what I've been hearing, all that bull crap. Um, so if you're like in a like everything bubble, for a good example, then I don't know how that could pop unless like 100 or 50 plus years goes by and just everything just like too hot for the market or something.
I mean,
I guess.
or Trump keeps doing what he's doing. I mean, it's like he's single-handedly like fucking destroyed the market. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see, man. Like that's the
Well,
thing is,
if you want
I
to
don't.
be if you want to be real honest with you, Trump has like similar plans to like one of the presidents before the Great Depression. Um, whoever the president was back in the Great Depression had the similar ideas with Trump, but I think he's I don't know if he's gonna go a different route with it, or not. But like what we're gonna be experiencing, I think, is like a hyperinflation that's gonna crash the economy basically. If we keep it up like the way we are, I think that's what's gonna happen. We had Great Depression basically, where we didn't print no money. Now get ready for basically too much money to the point where it crashes the economy. Oh, and to the
It's
point where we're
all.
probably go
Well,
ahead.
so
I was gonna say, I think
here,
it's just rich people stealing from rich people. It's like, if you like there's this thing in high finance, which is it's not that you don't want to be want to panic, it's that you want to be the first person to panic. And if that means selling
What?
off toxic,
No.
if that means selling off assets that you know
Ah!
ahead of time are toxic, you're gonna do it and make those margin calls.
Right.
Yeah,
Well-
no, I mean that makes sense, but
I
it's
just
still
think that,
like when they say
something's
the
happening.
economy is crashing, like I still don't understand what that fucking really means.
Well, the economy is like not exactly. I mean, obviously the stock market affects the economy, but really the
Well, right.
economy you'd want to look at more stuff like GDP,
Well, no, no.
grocery prices.
I mean, I get that. There's GDP, there's CPI, there's the stock market, there's trade balances or imbalances.
So I'd
There-
say the
there's-
correct term for it is a recession. Like we're in like more of a recession right now. Like mini
and what is the
crash.
cause of the recession? That
Well,
doesn't
Tariffs,
make
I'd
any
say.
fucking sense to me.
I'd say tariffs for the most part of it. It's just
No, but that
com-
doesn't get to
Well,
the
well,
root
well, well,
of the
well, well, tariffs
resources that I'm
and
talking about.
I mean, here's the thing: is when the Fed, like you said, started to get interest rates under control, it's like a double-edged sword, right? It's like one of those things where you have to do it because if you don't, you'll go into hyperinflation. But the downside is, let's say you work at a business, well, the investors in that business, to probably at some extent, are probably slightly leveraged in, right? Like they're borrowing money to do an investment. So when they have to sell off those positions, that means your company can't grow as fast. Like when there's less money to go around, that includes to investors, which would in theory put it in your company, right? And that's why you see all the contraction is because there's no more room for expansion. Like there's no more free money just flying off the press at zero interest, right?
Yeah, I guess I really don't understand the value of money. That's
there's a
all I was
lot to
trying to
go
get
into
at.
it.
You can't expand. It makes it really hard. Like let's say that your boss tomorrow decides, you know what, I want to go open a store in I don't know, the city. Well, obviously most businesses would have to like take out a loan to do that. And so that would be really hard for him because he'd go and like the rate would be so high, right? Whereas back in the day, he could just go and be like, "Oh yeah, money is basically free to borrow. Let's just get it done," right?
It's weird. I don't understand it, but thank you guys for entertaining my.
And the same thing for the stock market, right? People leverage into the stock market, meaning when rates go up, they like it's already treading on thin water to be borrowing money from the bank because you have to basically make sure that not only can you make gains, but you have to make sure that the gains you make over the time of that loan are greater than the interest you're paying, right? And
Yeah.
so again, if you increase interest rates, you have all these investors that are like, nope, and they just immediately liquidate their stuff and just pay back their loan because they don't want to get caught in either, right? Like,
So so I guess my base level understanding of money is that money, aka currency, is only valuable because you pay taxes to the government that you owe taxes to, right?
it's valuable because people think it's valuable. It's valuable because right now, as
Well,
we speak,
but isn't that when we talk about currency?
yeah,
Isn't that the basis of the value? Because you
its
have to pay your
value is
taxes.
confidence in America, like in the American system and the American economy, right? And and its value is again just like a stock based on its trading rate. Like as we spoke, like in the last 5 seconds, like millions and billions of US dollars were traded just in that tiny span of time that I spoke, right? So like it's being traded right now at incredibly
Yeah,
high
but
volume by
that
the
doesn't
second.
mean anything.
No, it does. It's just like a stock. Its value is literally the current continuous market price, like relative. You know what I mean? Like that's. I mean, at least if we're looking at it from other
Okay,
people's like perspective.
but then we're still back to like a former evolution of cryptocurrencies. That's all we're at.
Well, no, no, it's people. The reason people trade it and buy it in the first place is because they're confident in America. Like just like you wouldn't buy a crypto that
Bro.
you aren't confident in the company running it.
Yeah, I agree because U.S. Treasury bonds are the most stable investment in the world. We
Yeah, I hold
always pay our
10% of my
debts,
port fixed rate.
just like
Yeah.
So, but uh, I just don't get it conceptually.
What do you?
It's just literally a store of value. That's all it is. It's like
But what is the value derived from?
it's derived from what people think like of the
Mm.
economy and like how likely you are to be able to go and actually buy something with it that's real tomorrow or a service tomorrow.
So when you say buy something that's real tomorrow, that's the point I'm trying to get to. It has to do
Yeah,
with
like so instead of
resources. It has to
yeah,
do with
because obviously
resources, right?
yeah, like if you're a firefighter, it's gonna be really hard to convince your dentist, like, hey, give me free dentistry, and if your house is over on fire, I'll be like the first one here. Or like that's a very difficult like deal to make, right? So the much simpler thing is the firefighter just uses his like wage from his job to, pay the person because that's like way easier and
God
both
damn
agree.
it. Now I understand Gizmo's fucking argument for the thing in Star Trek, the replicator. Now I
Yeah.
understand this fucking
Technically
argument. Because
technically
if people have infinite resources,
yeah.
this whole money and currency bullshit is irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no. I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to economics. My understanding is like the whole reason we have an economic system is to deal with scarcity. You get rid of scarcity, there's not really a need for an economic system. I mean, that's my understanding.
Oh god damn it. Fucking that's a good fucking fuck.
You're welcome.
Are ideas scarce?
All right. Thank you guys for helping me get to the basics of this.
Yeah. Like
Mhm.
for example, the reason that it would cost you so much to hire like a machine learning developer that's smart enough to work at Microsoft is because A, there's very few people on Earth that can like grasp this, like even just the math itself. And then B, there's even fewer people within that set of few people who would be still competent enough to work at Microsoft in a lead, position. And so, like, that's what it is, right? Is there's so few people who could give you that level of like knowledge and like output, like actually get like novel things done, right? That you have to cough up the money because if you don't, there's other people willing to do it, right?
My mind is blown. I'm gonna step out. I'll still be here listening for a second, but my mind is blown now.
I wasn't here at the start of this. Is that what sparked the conversation? He just wanted to understand what currency was?
Basically, the when people say money is generated or money is
Mm,
created or whatever.
mhm.
And I was trying to get to the source of the value, and I was trying to talk about resources and whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so scarcity,
Yeah.
that is
So one example that kept coming to my mind, I don't know if we've covered something similar. It's like I don't know if you've ever had a hobby, like if you collect any sort of playing cards, magic cards, or even if you're not into that, if you like collect shoes or like designer clothing. It's like those things have, a certain value to people. It's not like it costs necessarily more to make this piece of cardboard
Yeah.
than a different piece of cardboard, but what it is that people see that cardboard and want that cardboard because of some non like produced cost to the card. Like there's a value to the card that isn't intrinsic to the way it was produced. It's just because I look at that card, I see the way that the ink is arranged in such a way that I'm like, hey, I'm willing to pay more money for that card because I feel like it gets a need out of it. And that's like what I'm thinking of it. Like you're talking about it generating, or like what's the value from it. It's like the U.S. dollar versus all these other dollars. And again, I'm not an expert in economy by any means, but just my understanding, if I relate it to that analogy, is it's just I see the one that says U.S. on it as opposed to the one that says something else, and I just value that more. Um, so that could perhaps explain why the U.S. dollar is different to another currency or whatever. Or like in the past, we had it backed by gold because people had a lot of value in gold and it was more material, and then it became more abstract. And it's like you mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say there's so many things. Like even let's use your example. Like
Yeah.
I collect books, for example,
Hmm.
and like let's say like today all the books I have are like worth whatever their market rate is.
Hmm.
If there was a global apocalypse, the books I have would be incredibly valuable to
Hmm.
someone with like high like acumen in economics, because you could, well, I have like all the original founding books of math, like Euclid's Elements, like the Theory of Speculation, Arithmetic of Diophantus, Archimedes' work. So you could basically reconstruct all of modern math from my books and have all the modern economics books. So like to the right person, that would be worth all of a sudden way more in like a post-apocalyptic society, right? Because they see the value in like understanding these things, because that lets them, mathematically trade better. It lets them, make calculated deals better, etc., right? And
Yes,
like
Lenny.
there's so many other things that could affect the value too. Like for example, how far you have to walk, right? Like if you're on a beach and someone's selling you a snow cone for $1.10, are you really gonna go like 3 miles down the beach to the other guy to get it for $1? Well, probably not, right? Because you feel that it's worth it to pay the extra 10 cents. Or or it could even be something as simple as like the most common one is like I need money now, right? Because money now is always worth more than money later due to the time value of money. So when you borrow from a bank, like that's like the value to you is that you get the money quicker. The value to the bank is that they get interest, right? So there's so many things.
It's still so circular.
Well, there's so many things affecting it. That's the thing. Is it's everything. It's like it's the country's economy. It's all those things I mentioned. It's like the individual person's value on it. So like there's so many things that affect its value.
Right?
And really, it's like
What's
what's
circular?
someone willing to spend for it is like.
This has been really fun. No offense, y'all. I'm gonna bounce around VCs. If you need any mod action in the room, just pick me.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. Best way I could really ever describe interest rate would be, let's say you get a loan out and you're paying $10 out of it for 5% interest, right? And then they lower that and now it's like $8 you have to pay out per interest per month. Because now it's at 4%. Like that's like the best way I could describe interest on a loan at that point.
I just mean like even something as simple as time can have a value on things, right? Like if you need money now and it's really important, then it's more valuable to you to have the 2000 now and pay the little interest, because now you can save your dog or pay the vet bill or whatever it happens to be that you need the money
Yeah.
for, right? So that's all I was meaning. All I was really getting to in that was that even just time itself can affect it, and is a very common thing that affects it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh man, I already have to pay like what, $30 in interest on my loans, but I get a lot of money in dividends though that just over overtakes it.
What's the discussion?
Just talk about the stock market and the economy. That's really about it. Yeah, if anyone wants to discuss anything, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was just thinking. I'm upstairs right now, so I might cut in and out. But I think an important debate that would need to be that needs to be had is the probability debate. Is it a 1-to-1 like chance that we exist, or is it the 1 in 10 to the 100 millionth power chance that things are the way they are?
Oh, you're talking like in relation to like fine tuning, for example?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um,
Can I just cut in quick on that one?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be contingent on whether the universe was infinite or not.
Mhm.
If the universe is infinite, we could be highly probable or highly improbable. It just depends on how frequent life is, in the universe, right? But if we're infinite, having life 1 in a billion galaxies could be actually pretty common, pretty
Yeah.
probable. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, another way I like to think about it is like I think the whole point of bringing up this argument is to try to say like, okay, under this assumption, which is the more likely outcome? You have typically it's like a naturalist versus theist explanation, and people like to assert that based on a theist explanation, life is more likely to happen or something. So the way I typically approach it is I try to think, so what sort of properties would I have to ascribe to whatever the rules are, the cause, whatever it is? How many properties would I have to ascribe to that thing in order to get us to where we are? Because I don't think that necessarily assuming that. Sorry, go ahead.
Properties like variables.
Well, property is like, well, sure, I guess that could be a way to look at it, but like, we think of a god, right? Property is like, is this god have, a certain number of power, and like how much power? Is it just the power to create the universe? Is it also the power to create the universe and critique every one of the variables? Is it also have like intent? Is it a mind? Because like you could have some sort of, concept of a deity that doesn't have a mind. So if you're adding all of these properties,
Yeah, is it eternal? Would be like another
right? Yeah, yeah.
property.
Whereas like, and I could say that like, okay, if I just take the naturalistic approach, and someone might say that like, well, it just seems impossible, that from nature everything could be random and then come to it. But I think typically when they talk about that, they're inserting a lot of assumptions about their particular deity. They're saying like, if you assume my deity with all of these aspects exists, then this is more likely. But you don't get any assumptions. You have to start from random nothingness and nothing controlling any of your variables. It is typically coming from the other side of that. So I'm trying to put it in such a way. Sorry, go ahead.
I think based on like what I understand of everything is that if we base our understanding on the universe on our understanding, then God exists. If we base our understanding on the universe of like the unknown and what we don't know, then God doesn't exist. And
would you mind?
what I mean?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I mean by that is like if where was I going with that? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll come back to it.
No, you said that if we base our understanding of the universe on, I think, our own understanding that God exists, and if we base our understanding of the universe on things that we don't know, then God doesn't exist. I think is what you said, right? Does that jog anything? Yeah, and I don't quite.
I think it's just.
I was just gonna say I don't quite understand what you're saying. Also, you're breaking up, so can't quite hear you.
I really struggle to articulate my thoughts, but
hey, take your time. I'm trying to understand.
My granny says I'm not a fast thinker, but I'm a good thinker. So
hey, sometimes those are the best ones.
What I mean.
I just say something quick. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go for it. I'm still thinking about what I was saying.
I think also we can consider probabilities, but we should also consider falsifiability, right? So if something can be tested or not. So if we're going to investigate anything and presuppose something exists or doesn't exist, there should be some tests to allow us to at least indicate or investigate, right? If it's not falsifiable, or at least we can't figure out a test, then it's probably something that shouldn't even really be considered.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I for the most part, I definitely agree with that statement. I think there becomes some muddying when it comes to things that aren't necessarily fact and things that are more subjective. Things like, like morality, because you can't falsify whether something's good or not because it requires some sort of subjective value. But I think for the most part, yeah. But keep in mind, we're talking about metaphysics right now, which intrinsically is like something not necessarily measurable. It's like it's like the idea of like cause and effect. Like, how do we know cause and effect, um, you know, is true? And it's really just we don't know. David Hume famously said it's just habit that we know that cause and effect exists, and we just keep seeing it work, and so we assume that it works until it doesn't. But it's not like a
Yeah.
provable thing.
I remember where I was going, and I
Okay.
can bounce it off of what you just said too.
Boom.
So if we base our reality on what we do know, then God exists, right? What I meant by that was if logic exists, then God has to exist, because logic would entail that it was there to begin with.
So
And
I'm interested in that. So sorry if you're going to keep going, go. But I'm interested in breaking down that first premise of yours.
yeah, so the human construct of logic, right?
Yeah.
If logic is a thing with or without humans, then that would entail there would be a mind. Like, and that was I made that assertion without even like thinking that it would need a mind. I just because it would have already existed. Logic would have already existed. And
Not
the universe.
not necessarily, right?
So back to the argument that I think is like really important to have is either it's a 1-to-1 or it's an odds of 1 in 10 to the 100 millionth power that we exist, and it's like,
well, let me ask you a question.
I lost it.
Is it possible for it to be 1-to-1 and not be caused by a mind? Is there something philosophically impossible about that?
Right. That's the argument that I think is like really important to have, because like logically speaking, the universe is not created out of random and chaos, like randomness and chaos. There's order to it, because like in a strict logical sense, the light has to be on or off, right? It can't be both. So even if the light is dim, it's still on, and like because there is like order to how things work in the universe, like for example elements and compounds, they're always going to be the same elements and compounds, and because of that implies that there's order, right?
So because there's elements and compounds, that implies order. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the follow. By order, do
Can
you
I
just
steel
mean
man it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I steel man? Okay, I think kind of what he's trying to say is like I think he sees a repeatability in the universe, right? So it's not a random disorder or chaos. It's an order-based repeatability. It can be observed over and over again, and things can be tested, and the same outcomes can be achieved. And I think maybe that in that TK might be presupposing then that there's a design, maybe, which implies an agency.
Yeah, okay. So my follow-up question was gonna be about like, are you meaning like rules? Like there seems to be a set of rules that the universe seems to follow. Okay. And so that implies a mind is what you're trying to insist on?
Yeah. So either the universe does have rules, and
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. You're breaking up again. I don't know if it's just me, but
It's breaking up.
yeah, okay.
I did agree. Either the universe does have laws or it doesn't have. And if it doesn't have laws, then that is arguing to naturalism, right? Or something?
If the universe doesn't have laws, that argues to naturalism. I don't think that necessarily follows. Just because there's a God doesn't mean there has to be laws and rules about the universe. Like I was saying before. Go.
If there's laws, is there logic then?
If there's laws, there's logic. Sure. Like if the universe is repeatability, I'd say that that's possible. Maybe even likely.
I would suggest for two things. One, logic. We see other, especially mammals, demonstrate logic as well, even though it's kind of primitive, but they do have forms of logic. So it's not necessarily that logic is a human thing. It can be some objective thing that some species develop somehow or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is the word law, because law doesn't actually really mean that it is this exact thing every time. It just means that's our best explanation for the current data, right? So although it may appear like the universe has laws, and we can test them and they're kind of repeatable, you can make the argument that they're only really valid for the local part that we can observe and see in our universe too, right? So, and we call them laws just because they seem to be very consistent. But I don't think it demonstrates that there is or order itself doesn't really demonstrate that a design or agency necessarily, right? It's just kind of like they're beside each other as arguments. But I don't know.
Well, and like I could see what you're saying though. Like the idea of there being rules of consistency in nature and reality. If I were to assert that there was a God that wanted to create order, that's something that I would expect to see. And then I can potentially see from you if there's not that mind and it could be whatever, then why would I expect to see order? So is that kind of where you're getting at with like there's order, that seems to be something I would expect with a God, but with something that could have been any way, why can I expect to see the order that I'm seeing now? Is that no? Am I not putting it in the right words?
It's like, okay, is it randomness? And if it is randomness, then it's the one in one. Like we are the one of one. That's kind of how I'm thinking it to be.
Can I ask you something? Do you think that you can both have a random universe and a ordered universe at the same time?
No.
Why not?
Because in the strict logical sense, the light has to be on or off.
There is no excluded middle. Is that what you're saying?
So if the universe does have order, that implies that the universe has order as a property. It can have randomness in it, but the core to it is that there is order.
I think, see, even in our kind of science today, I think that's a big struggle for a lot of people, is that we have, on the one hand, schools of science that designate the universe as orderly. And then we have schools of science, especially when you get into the quantum world, that kind of starts to suggest an actual randomness, right? But it's hard to bring those two things together because, we can see that there is some order to the universe, right? So but it's possible that they're both can be valid, right? They can be both orderly and random. Right.
Well, and it's consistent. Like what they call the laws of nature. They call it the laws of nature because it's super consistent. I don't know why the combining.
Well, give an example. Give an example. I mean, like, they're called laws of nature now, right? So, for a long time we thought gravity was a push or a pull or some type of force. When now we think of it as just a stretching of space-time. So it's really the laws are really reduced to what our capacity as humans are to observe and to calculate, right? So we as a colloquial term we say laws of nature, but like I said, laws aren't really, from a scientific point of view, something that's concrete. They're there as as best explanation for the data until something else comes along, right? So it does like demonstrate consistency, but then there's other aspects of the universe that seem pretty random.
I mean, that's tough because you can math it out, and I feel like when it comes to math, math is the one truth in the universe.
Okay, well, let me ask you this because you said math it out. Can you math out the stock market?
I mean, some people do, I think. I don't know. I'm not a stock market guy, but let me just finish my point, is that
sure,
the mathing it out thing is important because I totally see where you're coming from. I believe that science is subject to re-examination. But the thing is like you can't re-examine 2 + 2 to equal anything else unless you break those rules and then change it to be something else that it's not supposed to be.
If you take like something, you ever heard of a Mandelbrot diagram? Okay, so it's just a very, very basic mathematical formula. It's kind of a recursion formula. And then when it goes over, it kind of creates infinitely, not necessarily random, but infinitely different variable images that constantly reproduce
There-
new different images. So in one
There's no-
aspect, there's order to it, but then the other aspect, the results are kind of random.
Are you talking like fractals?
Mandelbrot's right
Yeah,
now.
you can
That
say
is
fractals.
so wild. I'm talking about Mandelbrot's right now. I'm literally, if I could tell you in succinctly what I'm doing right now, you wouldn't believe me. I'm literally using the Mandelbrot set to map God's 29 ontological properties, whether they be into two categories. First order, which is like the omnipotence or the omni properties, the aseity, holiness, like the first order properties, and then the more personal properties correlating to Julia's sets found within the Mandelbrot set to make a ontological neural network of sorts. It, that's so crazy. You're talking about the Mandelbrot set. That's wild.
Wild.
Every single
It's
number is there. It's all there. It's crazy. If God wrote an
just
autobiography, sorry, I'm rambling, but
no, man,
I
it's
think
all good. It's all good.
I think that God wrote this autobiography in mathematics, and we can find him there very, very simply. I mean, I'll show you one time. I'll show you. Go
I
ahead.
would agree because like I've come to that conclusion too that it's through mathematics where I like reaffirmed my belief like tenfold in God was through math because like I see math as a tool to communicate and it's the only truth in the universe and it's like the best descriptor to the universe. Like you can codify anything through mathematics and then explain it away using mathematics to somebody else. And the cool thing about math is it's always going to be the same no matter where you go, and it's baked in to our reality with like elements and compounds. So like two hydrogen, one oxygen will always equal one water.
So do you think like math is a property of the universe, or do you think
know
it's
that-
kind of human invention?
Didn't you know that
That-
North Korea proves that 1 + 1 is not 2? I mean, think about it. If you take a raindrop and you add it to another raindrop, do you really get 2 raindrops? Or do you still just have one big raindrop?
Boom. This guy gets
back
it.
to what you said. What did you say before the guy talked about rain? You
Honestly, I
asked-
forgot what I said.
I know that blew my mind, man.
It bounced. It goes back to that question. It's like, okay, is it the 1-to-1 or the 1 in X amount of odds that we are?
Oh, odds. Just to quickly say, you said that math was a big persuader for you. I just asked do you think math is a human invention, or do you think it's a property of the universe?
Just linked
It's-
it in chat.
I firmly believe, and I don't want to say believe. I feel like I know that it's a property of the universe because we discover it. We don't invent these things to be. They already were, and we find them as we go.
I like
You
to,
know, like a lot of math. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I like to think of it like and I don't know how well this analogy holds up, but like you ever done any sort of programming, like with a programming language? You know that when you enter the code into the computer and you have these lines of code, we know what kind of does what it does and how like the logic interacts with the code, but it's not what happens in reality. Like we break that code down even into ones and zeros, but even the ones and zeros aren't what happen in reality. It's just, you have a voltage passing through this circuit or you don't have a voltage passing through the circuit. That's the 1 and 0. So my idea of math is like I think of it like that programming language. Like the math itself isn't reflective of the true reality. It's like an interface for which we can interact with the reality, if that makes sense. It's like the in between. It's the
I
programming.
agree with
language.
that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so it's like we could say that like we have math, but it's like Python. you know, and like writing the code in the Python, we've created the function, you know, we've developed this function that allows the code to do something new, something basic that we need to do. And that's kind of what math is. Like when they discovered calculus, that was adding the new function, which reflects, you know, reality. So it, you know, because people can create different rules for math, but the it's just the test of whether or not it's true is, does it reflect reality or not? And that's what I would say about the programming language too. What were you going to say?
That's what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
using Python to
Python, yeah.
literally code a Mandelbrot generator weighted with the theological principles of these ontological properties to show me where aseity is, or draw the connection between, you know, the properties that would inform something like love, grace, mercy, and peace, right? These are all connected. There's a second four. Well, there's a couple of different first orders that inform these second orders, and there's a connection. You guys are blowing my mind. Am I dreaming? You guys are talking about exactly what I'm doing right now. That's been meaning to. This is so strange.
Hey,
This is so weird.
Amen. Maybe it's God's divine providence. Who knows?
Like how many times in pure mathematics, and this is probably an everyday thing in the field, where they invent a math that has literally zero application in any other field or anything, and then it'll be decades or even maybe centuries later where someone's like, hey, I can use this to apply to this phenomenon and model it, right? So I mean, it really boils down to it's more or less that programming language, and they found an application for it. So we're kind of fitting ourselves, our logic, our brain to the universe than the universe is fitting to us, right?
Okay, so you think that we created math. The universe didn't inherently have math baked in, right?
In a way.
Yeah, I mean, like even if you look at basic quantity, right? Like really, quantity numbers have no inherent meaning really outside of human necessity to use them, right? For commerce and everything else. There are no numbers in the universe, so we just invent models and then apply it to the universe for our own benefit. Applies to all things. Most things are in our universe, as far as we could tell, human invented. We observe it, we invent it, kind of thing. We observe a planet, we name it a planet.
Yeah, and like to bring that to my example about the programming language, when I talk about the 1 and 0s, the voltage drop that goes like in the circuit, the, you know, the circuit, the voltage flowing through and not flowing through, like it's not a 1. It's not a consistent voltage. There is some variance in there. We just round it to a 1. We say, oh, it's this if it breaks this threshold or whatever. So it's not. It's like I can even agree that there are fundamental things about reality, like certain things that we would call logic or we would call mathematics that exist, and we interpret that through math. So like math is a way that we can interact with the reality, you know, the real world in a sense, but it's like it's not perfect.
Can I give one more example about regarding logic? Because when we think about logic, most people think about rudimentary logic, right? You know, A is A and excluded middle and contradictory and stuff. Yeah. But then there's all kinds of derivative logics that really only truly apply to human life, right? Like modal logic. It's not something that, you know, it's like either is or isn't. You know, now we're talking about possibility and all these things. These are human realm things, right? So that's a strong indicator that the logic, just like all the logic, is relatively invented. Like we invent it for our purposes. We don't. It just so happens to be that basic logic is very self-evident. Kind of you know, it's very easy to observe, right? Versus a lot of other forms aren't, and we just invent it for our own purposes, and there can only be for our own purpose. So so logic makes it look like there's something, you know, inherent in the universe. It's just not the case.
Well, that's a.
All right, gentlemen, I got to get out of here.
All right. Thanks for
take care, guys. Been good.
Yep.
Later.
No worries. Bye.
I can see a lot of what you're saying. Like I think in a sense I agree. Like there's something fundamental about the universe that the math or logic kind of interprets for us. It puts it into a method that's soluble to our minds. It's like I was reading some of Kant earlier, and he talks about how like his theory is like space and time is something that is necessary for our brains to be able to understand the world. So like he separates something between the nomina and the phenomena. The nomina being things that actually exist, the real things, and phenomena is just the impressions we get, like how we observe what's going on. So if you think about like math in that way, math is kind of the phenomena, and the nomina would be the actual, we'll call them rules of the universe, the actual things that happen in the universe.
I mean, I'm
Mhm.
I'm open to
Mhm.
like your guys' points of view, right? I'm not biased,
I would
and that's
say
why I'm like bringing it up.
Yeah.
But I just I remain unconvinced because
No,
it's
you're
either
okay.
you either take the value of you think math is discovered or you think math is invented. So it's either one or the other. And if it is the way you're saying, then I see your point of view.
So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying necessarily that math is discovered. I think we're using math to describe a real, real nomina to keep that nomenclature. Um, so the math part is our invention, but the nomina that it helps us to understand is real. So we use math as like the term. So I guess I'm a bit of the both in a way. We invent math to understand the universal happenings that are real. Does that make sense?
Does
You're calling it
but
math. Go for it.
does the universe
Mhm.
obey mathematics?
Uh no. I would say at best mathematics obeys the universe. If that makes sense. So if mathematics didn't reflect things real in the universe, then mathematics wouldn't work or it would be wrong. 2 plus 3 does not
familiar.
equal 2. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you familiar with the theory of forms?
Oh, the Plato's theory of forms?
Yeah.
The idea that there's
Yeah.
like the
So
some yeah, go ahead.
I would argue that it's basically just a mathematical version of like the theory of forms. So basically, the world operates in a certain way.
Mhm.
Now, we don't know what that way is. Just like Plato would argue, we'll never achieve, pure justice or pure love
Mhm.
because we're always going to be imperfect reflections of those things, right?
Right.
I think it's just the same with math, right? Is like the world operates obviously in a certain way. And what do? We use predictive models, including our brain, which, yes, I posted in the chat. There is overwhelming empirical evidence that the brain is just a predictive model at this point. We use like our inference skills and like our what we've seen in the past, and we generalize that to better navigate the world because it works, right? Because if it didn't, we'd be dead, and so were all of our ancestors who didn't evolve fast or good enough,
Mhm.
right? So like that's the thing, right? Is like it's really just what keeps us alive is our ability to predict and infer.
Yeah, that was an interesting thought. I listened to Alex O'Connor, and he brought up this good objective. He heard it from a secondary source. I don't know who the guy's name was, but essentially, it could be possible, kind of like to you for what you said. Maybe our ability to perceive the world, the logic, kind of the way that we inform our decisions and see the world, is just made for us to survive. So technically, we could be constructed in such a way to believe facts about the universe that aren't true because it helps us to survive. So maybe it's the case that math doesn't really show what happens in the world, but because our brains are forced to.
It's our best estimation of how it
Yeah,
works, right?
yeah. I mean, it's just a thought experiment to kind of sow a little bit of doubt. Like, hey, it could be the case that maybe it's not reflective of reality.
Well, yeah, but it's about trying to do your best to minimize the error and like what you
Yeah,
perceive using it for,
yeah.
right? Like if you're consistently using something and it works, I mean, to be fair, at that point, it doesn't even have to be a universal truth because it's obviously good enough for whatever you're using it for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's what I said earlier about like Hume and Hume's idea of cause and effect is by habit. We just see that it works, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is kind of the idea with it. And so in that sense, in a practical sense, like yeah, I mean, I can only ground it so much, but it's at least useful to me. But
like our brains
yeah.
are predictive machines,
Mhm.
and again, through learning and interacting with our environment, we've taught ourselves that if we do math, we can get even better outcomes. So
Mhm.
it's really just even the act of learning math is like a learned trait that we like decided to make, right?
I
Like
would
just like in
disagree. I don't think it's learned
Math.
because babies inherently know math, and animals inherently know math.
I wouldn't say they know math in
I,
any like significant sense.
well,
Well,
so I
they
think of
understand very basic things like things go missing or somebody enters the room.
so that
They
that
understand.
that to me is like that's where like the math and then like reality kind of separates. The reality of it is like, yeah, if there's a thing there, there's a thing not there, but the
Yeah,
math part comes later. We have to learn the mathematical rules, but we have, through our biology or whatever, just through the experience of experiencing the world, we see things. Things are there or things are not there. Things are in between. That's like that's a what's an excluded middle, right? It's either A or not A. It can't be a mixture of both or something. Um,
Well, every,
Go ahead.
well, a lot of it's punishment and reward, right? Like if
That
you
too.
touch a hot stove, that's hot. You don't do it again. And that's the thing is even using just those simple concepts of reward and punishment, we've we've applied that concept to machine learning agents that learn through reinforcement learning, which is very similar to how we learn, and they'll come up with strategies that like even perplex the developers. Like even the developers were like, we didn't think it would make a strategy this good. We didn't even think a strategy this good was possible. So that's the thing. Is even through just millions of rounds of these things dying repeatedly because they're idiots, and slowly learning through, um, reward and punishment. Like let that go on long enough, and you might just find them like self-teaching themselves math to even better navigate the world. Is what I'm saying, right? Is because if they learn that they can use these mathematical principles to further their objective, then it makes time for them to, learn that and exploit that knowledge, right? Even if we're just talking about agents in a machine learning simulation, it would be in
Right.
their best interest to learn that.
Hmm.
Because then they could make calculated decisions, right? Strategic battlefield decisions too. Like, oh, how long would it take these guys to get here ahead of time, right?
Yeah, but I think kind of where TK, because I think we got kind of off page of where TK was. TK is trying to make this as like an understanding of what there are rules in the universe, that points to an order, which points to a god, and you keep bringing up to either the universe is 1-to-1 probability, like it had to be here,
yeah.
or it's like 1 out of 10,000. So it could be the case that it's random, and there are things that could have been different, or it was like meant to be. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Well, hmm.
That's where I'm stuck. I'm really.
So either it had to be, or it could have been any other way, and it just happened to be the way it was. Which I guess that's a fair enough guess. I guess I don't really know. So if because I can apply that same kind of thinking to a god, kind of how we started out the conversation. Like you have all these aspects you're attributing to a god. So I think of like, what's the most basic thing that must exist? Well, something has to be able to.
Reality.
Right. So reality exists. However that is, something has the ability to, if you're of the opinion that the Big Bang points to some sort of creation of the local presentation of the universe, or like the creation of time, space, matter. So whatever it is has to at least have the ability to cause that, whatever it is, whether it's the universe or it's a god. So we agree with that. I would assume that something has to at least have the ability to cause the local presentation of the universe.
Um, I feel like that's a leap. But yeah, you can
Really?
say that, I guess. But it's.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find the bare bones basics. Is like
Hmm.
the probability that we're here. Is there a probability or isn't there a probability? Is
Well, the probability that we're here is like, in, I mean, you could argue it's 1, right? Because like we're here.
Yeah, that's
Like,
the
we know we're here.
yeah, that's the anthropic principle. Is like we don't know if it's 1 out of a billion. I think that's kind of what TK's get into. It's like the anthropic
Are you
principle.
asking? Are you just to clarify? Is your question like how unlikely is it is like given all the things that could have happened on Earth in the last billions of years that we specifically arrived? Like, is that what you're asking? Like the odds?
I
Like,
guess
are you asking what's the odds of us specifically?
I guess the core would be the Big Bang.
So the odds of the Big Bang happening, one,
I guess so, yeah.
one or 1 to a
That's
billion.
honestly at this point beyond our scope to measure. Like,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, that to me it then comes down to like, okay, we're trying to look at something we can't confirm or deny. We can talk about like probabilities and the philosophical sense of like what if I were to assume this, what's the likelihood this outcome would happen or whatever. So that's a route we could try to discuss, but then that kind of goes to where I was talking about, where you have to start with like what are your base assumptions, what attributes are you attributing to God or to not God,
And the thing about probability is you're kind of assuming ahead of time that you know the amount of possible outcomes, right? Like, for example, let's say you give a 49% chance to one thing and a 51% chance to the other. Well, you're inherently assuming that it could only be those two things. If it's a third thing, you've just wasted all your betting chips and lost all of it, and we're completely wrong, right? Is what I mean.
Well, isn't
like,
it countless possibilities? Either the universe explodes and is just the way it needs to be in order for there to be the universe that is, or the universe explodes in such a way where no form is possible.
Well, the law of truly large number dictates that anything with a chance greater than strictly 0 over a long enough time is likely to be observed. And then also, it's like I think people overestimate like how hard. Like, I think, for example, people have this concept in their head where it's like, oh, like I'm so unique. There's no way like the exact things like would have matched up perfectly. Well, one thing that we know from statistics, if you look at things like the birthday paradox, is that features like happening to match are actually like a lot more likely than you might intuitively assume. For example, if we took all the people in this VC, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we took all the people in the VC above, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so 13. So basically, like if we took the people in this VC, the VC above us, and like a couple VCs down, like, and we got to 21 people, right? There's already, actually, I forget if it's 21 or 23. But it's one of those two. It's like 21 or 23, and at that point, it's like actually more likely than not that one of us share a birthday. And obviously, a birthday could be any day in 365 days. So that it seems counterintuitive, but it's true. Like, even with a very small group of people, and like that many possibilities of birthday, like 365 possibilities, it's still more likely than not at that point that you find a match, even with just those things interacting. Now imagine repeated interactions with other groups, and now you're really destined to find a match, right? So,
I come to these like channels all the time, these debate channels and stuff, and I usually just listen.
Yeah.
And I think, and no offense, Unmoved, but I feel like when people do what you just did, it's a logical fallacy. Like you're comparing something to something you don't understand, so that you can try and understand it. And then you assert that what you do understand about the one thing is you can assume that you can understand about the other thing.
Oh, okay.
But that's just totally not fair.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that somehow the universe existing isn't the same as like his birthday analogy.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but like I'm not saying about the universe. I'm saying about people who have the specific argument of like these exact things matching up being unlikely. Like that, we do have empirical evidence that it's like pretty counterintuitive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could apply it it sounds like in the other way. It
We
sounds like
apply
it might
this to
be.
passwords, by the way. There's called a this birthday problem that I linked applies to hacking passwords. They only like and dehashing passwords, so it's like a well-known thing in statistics.
All right, I'm mentally checked out now. I'm playing League.
Oh, this is your stream? Okay, cool.
I'll listen to what you guys are saying though.
Well, I think it sounds like me and Unmoved kind of are in a similar camp. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind if I'm the minority or whatever.
no. It's like I've never gone to a channel like this before, so I'm trying to branch out into things, and I'm actually glad to interact with somebody that doesn't hold the same views as me, because that's what I'm hoping to get a better understanding, maybe see a different point of view. So
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think about math
Yeah.
being a truth? Do you think math is a truth?
No, for the reasons I kind of
okay.
explained. I think of it as like math is like the programming language. I think if you want to call it the truth is the reality that the math talks to. But if I want to be less philosophical, I'll say yes, in the sense that math is pointing to the truth. So I'll say yes to that. With sufficient asterisks for what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not like tomorrow I think that math is going to be wrong, I think it's consistent and it has its place, but that it's also not perfect in its representation. Like the programming language is what I'm thinking.
Talking about programming language and Python stuff, right?
You cut out for a sec. What'd you say?
You were the one talking about the programming language and Python and such when
It was me and the other guy that left. I cannot remember his name, but we both talked. He talked about the I don't know what he called it, so the thing with the numbers, and I talked about the programming language.
I'm still here. And just to
no.
clarify, I'm not claiming I have the answers to the universe. In fact, the opposite. The only thing that I am claiming is that we have evidence that like feature matching is a lot more counterintuitively probable than people think, even in a small set of people. And then the second thing is that I was just pointing out that like over a long enough time, anything with a greater than 0 probability will occur. Right.
No,
that's all I was claiming.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the guy that was here before you. Him and I were talking with TK, and then he brought up I can't remember what the example was, but it turns out that Icon was working on something that had that same aspect. I don't really know what it was. I thought that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, do you do any programming? Do you do coding?
No, I've done a little bit when I was in college, but my understanding is super basic. I am a basic bitch.
Well, just to show you what I was working on, I was going to send you the files to see if you wanted to play with them. Yeah, it's just.
Yep. Go ahead.
Well, it's just dripping with irony that you guys are sitting here talking about the very thing that I'm doing. It kind of blew my mind, honestly. I didn't know if I was like daydreaming or
we're watching
dreaming.
You. Yeah, no, we were watching you the whole time. That's what it was. I could see your camera. You didn't turn it off. You fool. No.
Well, for you, I'm on the other side of the camera, so.
That's what you think.
I feel bad that you have to look at that other mug.
Oh man. All right, no, but that was an interesting discussion, TK. I'll have to think a little bit about what we talked about. Let's see, because you say you're not convinced about what the fact that
I'm convinced that math is a truth. I'm convinced that it is discovered, not like I see why you guys think it's invented, because obviously you need to like invent the code in order to understand it,
Right.
but it's inherently there.
So it's that the code is inherently there, or that like, you know, to take the code example, like the fundamental principle of the coding is what's really there. Like we have different programming languages. We have Python, we have C++, we have Java was one I know for a bit. So like these are different languages that share similar properties and they can form the same functions but have different like methods of doing so. So if I want to say like, you know, like Python is a truth, does that necessarily exclude like C++ or something? And that's kind of how I think of math in that way. Like the fundamental like reality that, you know, you have the voltage going through the capacitor or whatever is the truth. That's the foundational principle or whatever that math is based on. That is the thing that I would agree with you and say like, yes, that exists, that is real, that is a truth. But the math is just our way to see that.
Could the program, so
Yeah.
could the Python program exist without programming?
Could the Python programming exist without coding? No, but I would say
Yeah.
I would say that
Mhm.
I would say that the voltage drop, because the Python coding gets, you know, the whole idea of it is it somehow gets translated into logic gates, ones, zeros, you know, true, false, and then that also is like another way we break down the reality that, again, a current passes through this or that line or that this or that capacitor. So it's that exists and is real and is true, and it's just the programming language is just how we interact with that. It's
Oh my
it's
gosh. Are you watching this?
yeah, I'm watching that. Like you're fucking insane, dude. Like
My
so if that makes sense, like the programming language doesn't exist first and then like the circuitry happens, you know? You know what I mean? It's not like we created Python or like Python existed in you know, in the world and then we created electricity. It's not that I don't think that happened. I think you would agree. It's that the electrical rules happened and then the programming language. So it's like I think we're getting caught up a little bit there. Like you want to
I
say
don't know what I don't know what Python is exactly. So.
it's just like, you know, you just type in the code. It's like usually lines of text. Python is nice because it's, you know, more readable, more user friendly. But you know, you lose like data storage or compilation or something because it accommodates the user so much. It's easier for the user to understand, but it just makes it so that it can do less things than things like C++ can for whatever reason. It's just so it's because of the way it's presented to us to make it easier. It's less precise, right? And I can think of math as the same way. Like it has a lot of precision, but it still has some imprecisions. Like again,
Oh, lag.
like what Unmoved brought up the idea of like two water drops forming into one. Is this one water drop really the same as this other water drop? You know, there's atoms different? They're in different places in time. Is it really one to one? Is it really identical? There's a bunch of like nitpicky ways to do that. So it's a truth in that what math is pointing to, the reality is true. I mean, I'd be willing to grant that, but the math is just the way we talk. Think of it as like a language. Like, is English a truth? No. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, you're right. No,
yeah.
it's not.
English wouldn't be a truth, but it's a way that we communicate ideas. It's I would say the ideas, which of course I would believe is just the way that our brain, you know, interprets
like
things.
You're half there to my viewpoint. Like,
Yeah.
when I've had this discussion before, most people don't agree with me that math is language.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% think math is a language, just like coding is a language, just like actual language is a language. I think that makes sense to me. It's just like the language we speak, English, for example, it's not the English isn't the truth. English isn't what's truth, and every other language it's wrong. It's that English is a way for us to display, you know, the truths about what's going on in our mind, our mental states or whatever. That's the actual true part. When I see an image, it produces this thing in my mind. That's the true part. The English is just the best way I can communicate that. And English isn't perfect. You know, I can't ever say words to you that will convey the exact image and representation I have in my mind of whatever my life experience. Nice kill, by the way.
That was tough. They engaged on my support.
Hey, but you got him. So if that makes sense, I'm just trying to understand. I think we have a similar understanding. I was just getting caught up, and I think I don't know if it's nitpicky, like, because I'm willing to say that, like, sure, math is true, but I think math itself is the language that we speak.
You do think math is true?
So I think math is true, again, with the asterisk of I think it's the language that we speak. Like, English isn't true. It's the thoughts that we have in our head that we're trying to communicate is the truth, you know? And just English is our method to do that.
This is annoying. They keep trying to shut me down.
Yep.
I can barely farm.
So I don't know if that makes sense or what issues you have with that interpretation of it. Does that make sense? I don't see why that wouldn't,
What was
align.
your asterisk?
My
You can
asterisk,
simplify?
my asterisk is that math is like English, but
Uh-huh.
but the real world that math applies to is like the thoughts in our head that we're trying to use English to communicate. That's the true
okay.
part. The thoughts is the true part. English is the mode in which we try to pass that on to each other. And I would say
So
that's
math-
math too.
So math implies that there needs to be like thoughts involved.
Well,
Like-
math, I think, implies that it's trying to interpret something. We're taking
Mhm.
something basic that we can't understand and we're changing it into something that we can. And that's what we do with English. I can't understand your thoughts. You have to find a way to, present them to me, and a communication is the best way. English is one way, this or that is another way, and then math would be the same thing for, rules of the universe.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think when people are telling you that, no, I think math is invented, that's what they mean. Like English is invented.
Yeah, I get that. I do get that part. And that's kind of why I had a asterisk too about
Yeah.
the invented thing.
Yeah,
So I-
yeah. So I think it sounds like we're on the same page here with our understanding. I think we've caveated enough. We've got enough asterisks, and I think we understand.
Yeah.
Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
No, I think.
All right,
we're
cool.
on do you think that math is baked into the universe?
So math in sense that of like English, no, but I think that it's our way to interpret it. So math baked into the universe. I think you're getting stuck on math, and I think maybe the terminology is I don't know if the word is triggering me, but like it's forcing me to be very clear in my language there. I don't think math is like an intrinsic thing of the universe. I think what math represents is the intrinsic part, and then we're interpreting it as the mathematics or whatever. That's what I'm saying. Think of it like math as the language, but I think we might just be mixing up our terms.
Okay. So let's try. I want to just thought experiment here.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's pretend
Mhm.
that you, oh God, so epistemology is like
Study of knowledge.
you pretend you can see the other person's point of view. Oh, I might die here. You can see the other person's point of view and then try and step in their shoes to see if they're right.
Typically, I mean, in the most like fundamental sense, my understanding epistemology is the study of knowledge. So how can we know things? Sure, epistemology would include, I would think, to put yourself in another person's shoes to try to
Like to
understand.
put your bias aside.
Well, that would be a good method for epistemology, a good epistemic standard, I would call that. I don't know whether it is epistemology, but I would be willing to say that, yeah, if you want to practice epistemology, you should do that.
Right. Gosh, what was my follow-up question to that?
Great question.
Trying to think.
Yeah, that's why I don't game and discuss, because I can't.
Right, I should not have.
I don't have the bandwidth.
I didn't
for
think I
this.
would continue. I thought somebody else would talk instead of me.
Nope, it's all you, man. This is your show. So you're trying to remember, because I'm also watching your game, which is.
I am really trying hard to remember right now. It was something to do with math.
Yeah, it was because you talked about is math like was it like a fundamental thing in the universe or something?
Fundamental thing.
I don't know if that's quite the word
Baked
you
in.
used, but baked into the universe.
Yeah. Okay, now I remember.
Okay.
That jogged my memory. Okay, so let's put your bias aside on like what you understand, and then
Sure.
try to come at it from my point of view on this. I think that the universe, it has math baked in with things like elements, and chemical compounds specifically,
So
because they react with one another.
okay. So
And so
go for it. Keep going.
I'm stunned. Hold on.
You're good.
Ugh.
I think I remember
No.
where you're at. Ooh, got him.
He's just too tanky.
He tried. So elements, math is baked into the elements, and that they interact with each other, right?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Yeah. So.
And so they seem to follow certain rules, and they have certain properties, and these seem to be reflected mathematically. Things like stoichiometry, for example. We write stoichiometry. We can determine, what elements are produced where, and like what they're. Go for it.
And so the elements experience reality because they have reactions. If they don't experience reality, then they never react with one. Like,
when you say experience reality, you don't mean like as a mind experiences things, right? You just mean like they are subjected.
That's where I'm getting at.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm getting at. So when I tell people, usually in like these debate channels, things come down to semantics and people's understanding of words and like what they specifically mean.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
if I was to tell you that I think that the entire universe experiences reality, therefore everything shares a conscience, everybody would be like left scratching their head because they don't understand what I mean when I say conscious. They're going to assume that I think like a mind. And
right.
I'm not directly implying a mind, but eventually I would allude to that.
Okay, so that's why I'm trying to understand. So when you say conscious, what do you mean by conscious? When I think of conscious, I think of someone like with the ability to have preferences, the ability to like have experiences, to have senses.
Yes,
to be
preferences, experience. Yes.
Yeah. So like there's a self in there. Like specifically, they have a self. Like if I don't have an idea of like a me, then I don't think of that as a consciousness. If that makes sense.
Don't think of myself as a me.
It's like not necessarily a self-awareness, but if there is no subject by which to receive the stimulus and like apply that to themselves, it's hard language, so I'm trying to communicate the best I can.
Yeah.
Like the idea of pain, right? If I put a sensor on a robot that tells it that, hey, if you bump into this, you scream out an alarm, we would both say that is not the same thing as bumping your arm and feeling pain. Although in one sense you can say that like, well, you're just kind of raising an alarm and your brain's interpreting the signals. But we would say that like, sure, but there's a feeling of pain that doesn't seem to be a 1 or a 0. That's subjective, like feeling. The thing of being the subject, the pain part. That's not a 1 or a 0, because I would find it hard to quantify pain in terms of mathematics, because it seems like a subjective thing, because that's something that seems like isn't universal, that wouldn't be able to be communicated across. So I wouldn't say an atom is the same level of conscious, because I can't conceive of an atom having a self in that way. You know what I mean? Like I can't think of an atom as like somehow able to experience reacting with another atom in the way that I could potentially experience interacting with something in the world.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah,
but
right.
in a similar way where they like do have experience and they have a preference and they're able to have a reaction with things in its environment, I would say that in a very small sense, it does have
okay.
A conscience. And I know that word is like really finicky.
No, you're good. So I'm trying to understand. So when you say conscience and preference, like if I were to hold, if I were to have a trampoline and I put a bowling ball on it, and the bowling ball wants to go to the center of the trampoline, is that, in your mind, is that the preference? The bowling ball preferring to go toward the center of the trampoline, to be pulled down as close as it can to the center of the earth.
When I say preference, I mean like the 2 hydrogen, when it reacts with the 1 oxygen, it prefers to always become water.
Okay, so prefers to become water. It has the potential to become not water when interacting with 2 oxygens? Because like I could use the bowling ball example. When I put the bowling ball on the trampoline, it always seems to prefer to go to the center of the trampoline because it brings it closest to the ground because of tension.
Either it'll have the reaction or it won't have the reaction. So yeah, I think it would prefer it.
Okay,
right?
so the bowling ball has that preference. So it could, you're saying that it's possible that the bowling ball could just not want to go to the center of the trampoline, all things the same. Just like, the hydrogen could choose to not bond the 2 oxygens and produce water. Maybe it'll produce something else with two oxygen atoms.
This is where it's like that,
Yeah,
that false equivocation thing that I was talking about earlier.
Sure, I'm trying to understand. So forgive me if I'm not there.
It's just because we're trying to understand it. It's something we don't understand with understand.
Well,
that being the bowling ball always going to the center of the trampoline.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see, because in my mind, I think the analogies are pretty much the same. The oxygen interacts, or the hydrogen interacts with the oxygen, the 2 oxygen atoms, and it forms water. Just like it follows the same sort of principles and set of rules as to why the bowling ball will always try to move toward the center of the Earth. In that case, it's gravity, and the other one, it's due to, the atomic forces.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing them as the same, and
I don't know why they prefer.
Why they prefer what?
Like, I don't know why the elements react so reliably.
Oh yeah, and I don't understand why, necessarily why it is that mass seems to attract other bodies of mass together. Why does it perform or produce a gravitational wave? I don't know. That's just a fact, a brute fact. It just an is. And I don't know, I don't know a why in terms of why would someone intend to do this? I just know that it's a brute fact, and I think in inserting that like a will in there is unnecessary, and just unnecessary. Like you don't need to input a will. Yeah, because it could happen without a will, right? There's nothing that requires the will or an intention. You're ascribing intention where it's not necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, intentionality. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, I think we lose this game.
Wow.
Intentionality is a good word, because it's like, and the will thing also kind of goes back to the conscience idea. It's like, does the atoms have a will to become water, right?
Right. And then you can also
the intentionality of it is, it seems like it has it doesn't. I don't know if it intends to become water.
Yeah, when you're saying the will and intention, it sounds like you're anthropomorphizing, which is where you take
right.
So it's like, I'm wondering, is it impossible that it does it without a will or intention? Like maybe the atoms themselves don't have a will or intention. Maybe it just is the case that it does that. Like, why is it required for it to have a will to do that? It seems to me like, if it's possible for the thing to do the thing without a will, the atoms to act the way it does without a will, and then you're choosing to add a will anyway, it seems to me like you're adding
If it doesn't
qualifiers.
have a will or intention,
right?
Would it? If it doesn't have a will, then could it ever become a water? I guess.
Okay, so you're making more of a positive case of like as if you're asserting that it needs a will to become a water, and I'm wondering, how have you made that determination? Why is it the case that it requires a will? So like, it could be the case that it requires a will, But a priori, why are we making the assumption that it needs the will? What's the justification for that? I don't think you've provided a justification. It seems to me like it's just, you have an inclination to assert the will here. You're making kind of the assertion. It's an implicit assumption that there
Where
is a
did
will
we?
there.
Yeah, how did we get to the?
We were talking
the
about
will
math.
Topic?
We were talking about math. We were talking about like how that inflects with the world. You're talking about chemistry and like how the atoms interact and how that somehow shows math as it. I forgot the exact phrase you use.
Because yeah, thinking back, I never inherently adopted the idea things need a will. I
Yeah.
do think that it shares a reality, like it experiences reality.
Yeah. Well,
Like if I hit a rock on the planet with another rock, those two are going to collide and they experience being, cracked against each other. And if two rocks a billion miles away do the same thing, it's reliably going to share the same similar experience.
Okay.
Right?
So by experience, I think of experience as typically associated with a mind. So if an experience, you mean like the same events happen, right? We'll talk about it in terms of events. Like a rock hits a rock, the same physics happen. The atoms will do the same thing in that instance as they would in other instances. Like the same events happen. But not necessarily that because an experience, I think, is something unique to a mind, right? That's what I mean. And we might be thinking of like maybe you're using the term experience in a different way than I am. So maybe experience to you just means
semantic thing.
Yeah. Well, language is tough, and so trying to understand best I can. That's why I'm trying to redefine experience to try to fit your idea of it.
Would you say that a table can't experience being set on fire?
Yes. I would say a table cannot experience that.
If you say that you could experience things through other people, and that might be how like empathy and sympathy evolve. Like if I see my fellow villager being burned alive, like am I, even though I'm not experiencing the burning, can I experience it through him? Like, can I feel that? Can I be like, oh, like, and shiver in the thought of?
So the experience that you're having, you're having the experience of creating that scenario in your mind. You're taking your experiences you already have and constructing with your imagination, a simulated experience. So you are experiencing the thought. You're not experiencing what they went through. I mean, it's like if you're a father and you've never lost a child, no matter how much you listen to someone talk, you're not going to understand what a father that's lost a child is going to feel like. You're not going to get that. It's because it's beyond your experience. So we try to associate, we take our life experiences and then we try to build up these. So in that sense, you're not experiencing their pain or experience. You're creating a simulated experience in your mind, but that requires a mind in order for you to do that.
Arguably an experience in itself.
Well, the experience, yeah, you have an experience of simulating that other experience. Yes, I would say that's an experience.
We're getting real meta here.
Yeah, right. Love
well,
philosophy.
I looked up the definition of experience. It says practical contact with and observation of facts or events.
So an observation.
And then the verb is encounter or undergo an event or occurrence. So if an encounter or undergo, but what you're saying is the table that is lit on fire is not encountering being set on fire, and it's not having a practical contact of being set on fire.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when I use the term experience, it requires a consciousness. That's when I think of experience, it thinks of that. So if you're talking about experience in the sense that like, our climate experience is warm and dry, right. So you're using it in that sense.
It would need a consciousness.
Well,
in order to fully experience it.
It would need a consciousness.
That's where I'm doubling back to.
Okay.
I do think everything shares in a consciousness because it does experience stuff.
Okay, so you're.
Does that make sense?
So So okay, why do you think everything experiences stuff in the sense that I'm using it? Because I think in the definition you used, that doesn't require a conscious mind. You know, I think in the definition you shared, none of that seemed to, except for when it talked about observation. That would require an observer.
I
But
I'm not trying to say mind exactly. I'm
right. Well, that's why I'm clarifying, because when I use the phrase experience, for me it requires a mind. So that's why I'm trying to get here. If it doesn't require a mind, it's not experience in the sense that I say it. It's more along the lines of the definition you shared, which I don't think is the way that I use the term experience. But if we want to use that other definition, fine. Then in that case, using that other definition of it just going through this, like it has it kind of, yeah, I don't know, it undergoes something. Sure, a chair experiences fire.
Well, the noun definition too also says participation in, involvement in,
well, yeah.
contact with.
Well, you can have participation and involvement in all that. It doesn't have to be anthropomorphized, because none of that to me requires a self. Like, I don't know, like so it gets funky if you're assuming everything has a level of consciousness to it. But like, I don't know, Pluto participates in our solar system, right? Because it's just in there. It's just in there. It's just in our solar system. So in the sense of like participate as being like part of the group, contributing to, it contributes to our solar system in the sense that it's there. It doesn't mean that it's, with a mind adding anything intellectually to it. It just is, it's just there. So if we want to talk about purely in terms of like mechanically experiencing, then I'll agree. A table experiences being on fire, and that it undergoes, the chemical process of being burned. If we want to say that, but like, I would almost prefer use the term undergoes. It undergoes, combustion, as opposed to it experiences combustion, if that makes sense. That's why that's how I'm using experience. But again, trying to use experience the way you're using it, undergoes, seems to, in my mind, fit better. But I can try to adapt and use your, oh my gosh, I can use experience the way that the definition you read off defines it, if that's how you're defining experience. Sorry if I'm trailing off. Just
No. For the most part, I feel like now you're like seeing my point of view with it more.
That's the goal.
I'm also in the epistemology thing. I'm hearing your point of view too, and I'm wondering maybe if the problem that we're having with this conversation is like the human language in itself is flawed or something.
That's kind of the thing. Language is imprecise, and it's kind of built up on our language. I think of language as being descriptive, not prescriptive. Like math is descriptive, not prescriptive. You were making. Go ahead.
In order for you to understand my definition of experience, I'd have to word for word explain it, right?
You would have to put it in a term that somehow aligns with my experience so that I can understand it. It's like if I tried to describe to you what a square circle was, but the words I was using, the way I described it, did not fit your experience, there is no way I can describe it to you. It's like color. How can you describe color to a colorblind person? They've never experienced it. Go for it.
Telling you the table is on fire and that it's experiencing being set on fire is not good enough, right? Like, no, there's something missing there.
Oh, so what it was, because I think I've identified it. I've tried to explain it, but let me try it one more time. When I use the term experience, for me, it requires a mind, right? So there has to be a self there experiencing it. I experience pain. That pain is that sensation. It's the qualia. I don't believe a table has a qualia. So when I use experience, I think of that. Now, that's the definition that I use and I associate it with. But you're right, language isn't precise. The definition you provided does not seem to require a mind. So maybe I'm just using the wrong definition of experience. So trying to adjust how I'm using the word experience to the definition you read off as something that just undergoes something, or if we could use the term participates in something. Yeah, I don't know if that quite applies to experience. That doesn't require a mind because things can participate, things can undergo things. Like I said, a table can undergo the process of combustion.
So-
Is that how you're using? Is that how you're using experience? As in, a table is undergoing something. These atoms are undergoing a chemical reaction.
Not exactly.
Okay.
It's that it is going through the process of, I guess would be the
Mhm.
how I would word it,
Mhm.
is like not quite awareness of, but it is enduring what is happening to it.
Okay, so it doesn't have awareness of what's happening. Let me try to put it. So,
Okay,
and you're go ahead. Go ahead. You explain.
okay, I hate to do this, but okay, so hypothetically,
Mm-hmm.
there was somebody who was totally brain dead,
Yep.
all right, and I was to just smack him across the face.
Yep.
From what you're saying, is that person does not experience being smacked across the face.
Yeah, I would say in the same way a dead person would not experience being smacked across the face. Yes.
So it's like it never happened at all.
Greetings.
No, it's like it happened, but the person didn't experience it. Because experience, I think, is subjective. It depends on a
Okay.
subjective. So I think experience is subjective. It requires a subject. Subject, from my understanding,
stuck.
requires a mind.
You're stuck on the word itself. Really.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's because it seems to me like we must be getting in there somewhere because you're talking about like again, I don't see how a dead person
Forget the word experience.
Sure.
Forget the word experience.
Yeah.
Let's use a different word.
Sure.
Okay, what word can we use?
Feels?
Experience is like the perfect word because it's
Yeah.
more than just undergoing. It's implying.
To me, it implies a subject, and subjects, in my view, require minds. You have to have a mind in order to be a subject. You have to be an agent. So
Right.
that's where I'm getting, and I find it very difficult to ascribe any level of agency to non-mind things, unless you're trying to make a claim that on some level everything has a mind, which I think you may have said, or everything connected forms
Kind
a
of.
mind. Right. Like, I don't think that my neurons, each individual neuron, has a mind. I don't think each neuron has a self, but I think they form together to
You
create
seem
a
to be
self.
just playing with words yourself. Academics sorted this out long ago.
For me,
Maybe I'm not familiar with it.
one of my
That's
jumps
why you read
to-
books.
I
one of my
try to read
jumps
some.
to theism, like one of my leaps to theism was my understanding of like atoms and how they're moving, and because they're always moving and they're interacting with each other, that they have their own experience with each other, and they have what was that word you used earlier? Like a favorability, like they will always
Preference?
preference, yeah.
Mhm.
They have a preference to how they do things, and it's all information, and because that's all information, that led me to have the logical jump to, if it's all information, then it seems like that could come from a mind. Otherwise, why does there need to be an information system where things communicate with each other reliably?
Why does it need to be an information system where
I
things can be
I know
communicated?
that's like a really thick concept to like.
No,
jump
so
to,
I'm trying to get it. So there's information that exists, and you're saying that like it's like words on a page. Like, why would words on a page exist if there's no one there to read it? Is that kind of
Yeah.
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 Okay. So I can kind of see what you're saying there. Here's a question. Is it at least possible that maybe the words on the page, it's just whatever, and then we develop a way to interpret the words to mean something, and then sometimes we find like I don't know how to describe that. The words on the page are like the phenomenon,
Yeah, I
and
see
it's
what you're
like and
saying.
it's like maybe we find ways to reliably write the letters. You know, we could recreate the letters on the page reliably, and so that's our thing. Or some, I don't that example I think devolved as I was talking about it.
I'm gonna share a video with you. This is one of the videos that
Sure.
it is, and it's so cooked up. You're gonna
Sailor Moon panty shots. Great. Great. that converted you. Hey, maybe that'll work on me, man.
no.
It better be some good shots. I better see God.
I went down a weird rabbit hole today.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, just today. No. Don't look at my history.
What's it called? So it's this video right here.
All right. Sure.
It's 3 minutes long, 3.5 minutes long, and it's weird.
Okay.
So get ready.
So I have to unmute you. I muted your stream.
Now we all carry multiple
There we go.
computers in our pockets and our belts, but computation is a lot more pervasive than these gadgets we carry around. Take this rock, for example. Doesn't look like it's doing very much, but it has trillions of atoms and molecules in here. They're all moving around, bouncing against each other at incredibly high speeds. That's computation. That's not very useful today. It's organized kind of randomly. We can't communicate with it very well, but we're going to change that. We're going to reorganize the vast amount of computation in this rock to make it useful. And it won't just be raw computation. We'll infuse it with exquisitely intelligent software, vastly greater than our intelligence today, and with all the knowledge of the human-machine civilization. This rock is going to be a trillion times more powerful than all biological human brains today. This is going to be quite a valuable rock. We call matter and energy reorganized in this way computronium. We're going to reach these limits late in this century, and at that time, we're going to turn many of the rocks and other stuff suitable for computation into computronium. And so, to keep the expansion of our intelligence going, we will then need to spread out to the rest of the universe, turning some portion of it into computronium. How fast can we do this? That depends on whether or not we can transcend or otherwise get around the speed of light as a limit. There are suggestions that there may be subtle ways of doing this. One possibility is to send intelligent nanobots through wormholes, which are basically shortcuts to apparently faraway places through other spatial dimensions beyond the three we're familiar with. Wormholes through space appear to be consistent with our understanding of physics. If it is indeed feasible to either find or build such wormholes, our intelligence will be so great that we'll be capable of engineering these shortcuts to reach other parts of the universe in brief periods of time. In that case, we could infuse the universe with our intelligence rather quickly. It would require only another century, that is by the end of the 22nd century, to saturate the universe with computronium. On the other hand, if we can't get around the speed of light, it'll take a lot longer. But in either case, expanding our intelligence throughout the universe is our ultimate destiny. Cosmologists today argue about whether the universe will die in fire or ice. Fire means a big hot crunch, basically the opposite of the Big Bang. Ice means stars flying apart, eventually dying out. Both of these views of cosmology assume that intelligence has nothing to do with it, that intelligence is just a bit of entertaining froth that dances in and out of the dumb celestial forces that rule the universe. But this perspective ignores the law of accelerating returns. As a result of the exponential expansion of our knowledge and skill, the universe will ultimately be infused with computronium, and over the vast intelligence of our human-machine civilization. So the universe will wake up, and we will intelligently decide its fate.
Okay, so he's meaning that like with Computronium being like, turning the matter or whatever into this like thinking supercomputer that eventually will expand that to all of the universe. That sounds very much like Asimov. Asimov wrote a work where like in the future like all of the reality and everything gets put into one big mega supercomputer, and then the supercomputer, after assimilating all energy and matter and everything in the universe, finally understands, throughout the whole, novel, they're asking the question like, hey, how do we reverse entropy? And then after the computer assimilates everything, it then produces the Big Bang. So the joke there being that, the computer becomes God and then restarts the universe. So that sounds very similar to Asimov's little example there. So it's the idea that we're gonna turn every bit of matter into like a supercomputer, and then the universe gains consciousness when it does that. Did I miss the point of the? Because
I think so.
He said
More or less.
Yeah, yes, because he said compositrons. In that case, if it becomes aware, like the rock, I would say isn't aware until after it undergoes the process. It becomes a compositron or computertron or whatever it was. Like if it goes that case, then it has awareness. Then it's the self. Then it can have experiences. But a chair, yeah.
Well,
go for it.
He said, it already.
Oh, he said it already. Huh.
Has it's moving around very quickly and it's bouncing off of each other. That's all information. He explained.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I might have missed some of that.
Yeah, in the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's actually it's this video and another video specifically that led me to that conclusion. And both of them are cooked. Both of them are really cooked up ideas. So it's this one, and then it's also it is
200
this
IQ
video.
guy.
Yeah, the Chris Langan, and this got a lot of like really bad reviews.
Yeah.
So like people didn't like what he was saying. However, I did listen to him very carefully, and by listening to him, was how I came to the conclusion that I do think that the universe, and I did adopt from this guy that the universe is conscious.
I guess.
And it made sense because of the previous video. If that makes sense.
Okay, I could see you like building a case. I could say that, funny enough, when we started this, you were saying that you were unconvinced. I feel unconvinced by universe as conscious. I'll have to look into something like this. But I think I'm willing to probably wrap this up for now. At least on my part. I've been here for a bit. I gotta go make dinner and stuff. But it's been an interesting talk. I'd be interested to continue a conversation in the future. Why don't you try to send me some of those videos? I think I've seen the Chris Langan one before. I'll have some time. I'll look over them. On my personal time or something.
I'll try to find the spot for you.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I can listen to the whole thing. But if you want to send it to me and then like timestamp something or whatever, like yeah, go for it. Here, let me.
Are you Mac?
Yep, I sure am.
Okay. Message.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was good talk, man.
Thanks, you too. Thanks for like being patient with me, because I know I'm a bit slow with articulating things and following along.
Yep, no problem. We're gonna accept this guy. All right, cool. Yeah, no, and if you have anything else in the future, I'm down to talk. Love that stuff.
Thanks. So this video, it got some bad reviews, yeah, but I wouldn't, just because like some people disagree with him, I would still.
Well, I think
glance over some of the important stuff.
I mean, I think I disagree with like a lot of philosophers, but I still think a lot of philosophers have something to contribute to a discussion, if nothing else than just to understand what they're saying. I still find value. Like it depends. I'm willing to look at this and just. It sounds like he influenced what you think. So it sounds like if this would be a good tool to help me understand maybe where you're at. So maybe I'll be able to understand better what you're saying after
Yeah,
listening to them.
this video was after I was a believer.
Oh, okay. Well,
Um,
even then, like it sounds like it changed your understanding of the consciousness, which is where I think we're running into issues. So yeah, I'll take a look at it. But
Okay,
thank you, man.
I'm gonna send you like one more video, and then I'm gonna also
Go
send
for it.
the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it, man. I'll take a look at it when I can. All right.
Okay.
All right. But
Enjoy
everybody.
your,
Yeah.
your food later.
Yeah. Yep. Later, guys.